So, mate, the season is almost over.
Yeah.
Champions League final to come. Of course, we'll talk about that. Yeah. I don't know. I feel a bit sad it's coming to an end.
On one hand, I'm sad because no more football, the Premier League. But at the same time, I think the knife is finally through Man United's heart. The season is done. We don't have to worry about them anymore for another 3 months. So there's a good and bad side. But yeah, I think football, it's going to be a weird 3 months. It's going to be a long 3 months. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the transfer window.
Yeah,
is,
silly season.
And I love it. And I'll be honest with you, I love it more now than ever because people are losing their tolerance for the stories. And I'm not. I love the will he, won't he? Will they, won't they? What could happen? Will he be good enough? I love the debate around, and it's kind of like I see fans now become so boring. And I'm going to throw a hot take in there straight away. And I don't even know how to word this, but like the searching for confirmation bias it's making football boring.
Yeah.
So every time I tweet all types of news about all of the top six.
Yeah.
So it could be, Liverpool are getting this player, Liverpool have been rejected. Arsenal are getting this player, Arsenal are not landing this player. And people, no, that's been debunked. And they find me. Sometimes it's the most obscure article. And I'll give you an example. There was talk about Yuri Tillemans.
Yeah.
And there's a number of journalists, credible journalists, verified guys who have said, maybe, just maybe, Arsenal have got to make him, reconvince him to join because he's always said that he needs Champions League football. And Arsenal were leading the race for him. They look almost certain to get Champions League football. No, Terry, why are you sharing this? It's fake. Oh, is it? I'm open to it. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah. Can you send me how? There's already been an article that's completely debunked this. That's from his reps that says he is happy to play Europa League football. I'm like, oh, great. Send me it. Because I'm not trying to disprove you. I want to go, oh, new information. You learn something.
Yeah.
Headline reads, Yuri Tillemans is open to playing Europa League football. And it's like, so he hasn't said 100% he's willing to go and do it. It means he's open to it. So there's Arsenal and there's other clubs looking at him and he's going to weigh up his mind and make a decision. And I'm like, why do people have to be so boring now about the transfer market?
You know what? I don't know if it's boring or it's like they're very protective and sensitive over their club's best interests. I remember even last year, I think it was with James Maddison, or there was an attacking midfielder Arsenal were very heavily linked to before the Odegaard deal. And I think it was, we'll just say it was Maddison for the sake of it. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was him. And I think Fabrizio Romano said the deal is not happening, or Leicester will not sell to him. It was either him or Houssam Aouar, one of the two. But there was this other, I think it was like the Bell. There was this other Arsenal aggregator. I haven't
seen him a while.
I
know him.
He's the one who broke the Partey deal the year before.
He had tweets in Arabic or a different language.
So the year before, all the journalists had been saying the Partey deal is off, and he kept saying, wait for the buyout clause, wait for it, and he ended up being great. And this year, last year again, he was saying, wait for Maddison. And Fabrizio Romano and David Ornstein even were saying, no, this deal as it stands is not going to happen. And they kept telling them, no, you're wrong. This guy here is saying it. And he ended up being wrong. And even this year, the whole Saliba thing, for example, where like they didn't want to believe that Saliba was trying to stay at Marseille for Champions League football. When GFN had tweeted it, RMC Sport had tweeted it. No. There was one paper that sided with the story that I want to believe. So therefore, the other 1,000 stories against me aren't correct. The same thing with the Maguire news recently, where there's a lot of aggregators, a lot of reporters saying Maguire, there's a good chance, or the dressing room isn't 100% with him. There's different cliques, and not everyone is comfortable with him being captain. No, Sam Luckhurst writes fake stories. He exaggerates everything. But Laurie Whitwell also said it, and he's very credible. But that doesn't align with what they want to believe. So that's really what I think it's all comes down to. Everyone just wants to protect their club's image. They don't want to be embarrassed by a story that makes their club look bad. But guys, the reality
about it some of the stories are not even making your club look bad. People start playing 4D chess.
Yeah. So
my take on you go back to the Yuri Tillemans deal.
Yeah.
I think Arsenal can land him. I think it's plausible. But what they don't want is, and I think they look at it, oh, well, hang on, though. Maybe if we say that, yeah, Spurs are looking at him and we get him and keep him, we can say, ha, we beat Spurs and you have Champions League football. And I think, well, that's a good bit of banter. But what they're then scared of is being accused of only getting him because you paid more money. Yeah. Because that's now looked at as a faux pas. Or if you go, right, okay, well, Spurs are offering you 100 grand. We'll give you 120 to join us. That's now looked as being negative. But that's how Spurs got Gaza off of Manchester United. They offered him a better deal. And I hate to break this to football fans. Most football players will go for the best career choice that's coupled with the right money.
Yeah.
And if there isn't a huge difference in the two options, the money could be a deciding factor. Football players they have a mercenary nature to them because they've got families to support. They want to make sure their children are okay. And, well, look, I can earn an extra 20. Do you know how much an extra 20 grand a week for 5 years? It's millions of pounds.
Yeah.
Why would they turn it down? And I just think fans, they start very early on with transfer stories around how do we make it look the best for our club? We don't want to link to him. We don't want to look like we're paying too much. We want to look like the player only ever wanted us. That's just not the reality of it. But when I say it makes it boring, it's just, I want to have a little chat and see what people think. People don't even want to have the conversations anymore, and it's crazy. There are so many transfer stories
a lot
at the minute. You look at Man United. It's interesting. Chelsea and Spurs. There's a lot of talk of big money being spent, but there's no major links. Jules Koundé is going to be a done deal.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the guy's in London. In fact, he was literally outside my office.
I saw that. Yeah.
That picture, that building, that if you look to the left, there's this green light above that are offices. That's where my old office was. So I know exactly where he was, a corner of Park Lane and Bond Street, basically. So he's in England, and you ain't got to be a rocket science to work out. He's waiting for the license to go through, which has already happened.
Yeah, he's a player they chased even last year.
What I was told by Ben Jacobs is that essentially the paperwork and everything is done. There may be a need to just reaffirm his beliefs that Chelsea's the right place for him.
They just have the ownership that
they just need to make that, but that deal's going to happen.
100.
But it's the other teams, like Man United as an example, linked to so many players which we expected. Which ones do you feel were like realistic?
I think the Timber deal, to be honest with you, I know the European lad who's a big Ajax fan on Twitter keeps insisting that he thinks Ajax can keep him. But I think realistically, when a club like Man United comes in, no matter their situation, with the money that they can offer him, with the chance to reunite with the coach who got the best out of him, I think if United really pushes for that deal, they will sign Timber. I look at other ones though, and for me, I'm not really confident with a lot of the deals, and I'm also very nervous about looking at all the top midfielders who are already off the market. Kamara already off the Villa. Tchouaméni reportedly agreeing a deal with Real Madrid. Frankie de Jong, I think, is a deal that's looking more and more unlikely to happen just because of United's current predicament and what the player wants. And I kind of look at it, and I know Erik ten Hag kind of had in his head that he wanted to solidify his targets as soon as possible before we even get the preseason. I think it's going to be very difficult for him to find his midfield targets, just because we're in a situation where I don't think United wants to pay over the odds anymore for these big names, but also they're in a situation where they're going to have to pay over the odds because A, they're Man United, of course, and the name holds weight. There's always tax with that. And B, they're not in a great position. Players aren't head over heels coming to the Europa League. So for United, I think, honestly, it's been a shaky start to the beginning of the summer, really, because you would have thought, and you would have really liked, I'm sure Ten Hag as well would have really liked to have his guys that he really wants, eyes set and okay, all we need is a bid, agree terms, and we can move from there.
That was one of the reasons I was angry at the players. For me, I know there's still a lot of talk from people that it was, tactics were bad. All the stories that came out Monday, tactics were bad. Yeah. He had favorites. They just echo all the things they said about Oli and Jose and LVG. Of
course.
And there's probably elements of truth to it.
Yep.
But for me, the players down-tooled. The players didn't work hard. They stopped. And my biggest frustration was that we make the task for Ten Hag
even harder. Yeah.
Because it is harder to convince certain players to come. There's a higher expectation in the Europa League on Ten Hag than there is the Champions League, because he wouldn't have been expected to win it or go too deeply. But he's probably looked at, depending on who we buy, United will be looked at as one of the top 2 to 3 favourites to win it. If not, depends on who always drops down from the Champions League. But United are going to be looked at as the favourites to win it. That's pressure, which I'm not saying he shouldn't get in year one.
Yeah.
But it's an unnecessary distraction based on the fact that the player's down tools.
I think next season, I know we say this every year, right? But I think next season will be a dogfight for top 4. And I think there's a very good chance United aren't the 4th best team when it's all said and done, just like in Jose's first year. That adds even more added pressure that they win the Europa League and make it to the Champions League through there. So, yeah, I feel completely the same way as you. I think players downing tools in general is disgraceful. But I think to put in that performance against Palace when your future manager is watching, I think is just wow, do these guys have any shame whatsoever? The performance that they put with their manager, who effectively is in charge of all of their futures, come on.
Mate, it was awful. It was awful to see. It really was. But, hopefully, as you said, as we say, the positive thing is Frankie de Jong is a confirmed deal that is being worked on.
Yeah.
Pau Torres is being worked on. Timber's being worked on.
But for me, here's the thing. Like, Frankie, I think with the club, it's being worked on. With Barcelona, like, I think they're comfortable. They can find a deal with him. But then it's just like, can you convince the player to come? I think that's the big issue for me.
I look at it this way. It all depends about who else comes in for me.
Yeah.
And then Man United have also got to make a conscious decision as to whether they wait or they twist and go somewhere else. And that's the big thing for me, because the majority of the major deals that are trending about us, those three, and they're real. There's talks of Milinkovic, Savic.
Yeah, that's every year. Yeah,
there's talk about Nkunku.
Yeah.
There's a few of Darwin Núñez, but they're very loose right now.
Yeah.
And I kind of get the feeling that those are the three deals United have really set their stall out on, because every journalist and his dog is kind of convinced that it's either preliminary talks right through to 95% done, right?
Yeah.
So I think they're there or thereabouts. Frankie de Jong is going to come down to who else comes in for him. I think if PSG come in and make him a great offer, Mbappe staying, Messi,
he's going to go to PSG.
He's going to go there. But if PSG don't, and Barca are like, we've got to sell you,
there's not much choice.
Then there's an option. But of course, but I'm not afraid of that. We go back to the original point at the start of this conversation. You'll get bantered as United, and you only got him by default. So what? As long as he works out, I don't care. Yeah. I mean, Real Madrid only got David Beckham because Fergie didn't want him, but Beckham didn't want to go there.
That's the case with most top players. Most top players, it's usually because, unless they're going to an even bigger club. But when you're going from top club to top club, it's almost always because there's a problem at your current club.
Yeah. And, Jaap Stam didn't want to leave Manchester United, and Ruud van Nistelrooy didn't want to leave Manchester United. But they went on to other places and did very, very well. And I think
United fans are scarred by the Di Maria thing.
And I know that, and I know they are. But I think sometimes we've just got to. I'm always like this under a new regime, and it is a completely new regime this time.
True.
I'm just going to keep my powder dry. It's hard. I get the PTSD as well. But there is also another rumor that's starting to generate.
Go ahead.
I mentioned that there's no big names being linked to Chelsea, but as we sit here recording this, I've seen it. Nazir Cancela has said that Chelsea will enter the race for Tchouaméni. They've got to wait for the deal to go through. But that also echoes a number of other reports today. But by the time this video comes out on Friday, it may have changed, that the Real Madrid deal isn't as done-dealed as everybody says it was.
Really?
Liverpool are reportedly going to go in hard after the Champions League final, as are Chelsea next week as well. Can you see one of the big English boys beating Real Madrid to Tchouaméni?
I don't see why not. But here's the thing. If it's a straight battle between Liverpool and Chelsea, unless Chelsea pays over the odds in terms of his wages, like they offer him $350 a week compared to, say, Liverpool, because Liverpool will not pay him $350K a week. They have a clear wage plan that they need to stick by. If Chelsea are willing to break the bank and give this guy whatever he wants more than Real Madrid or Chelsea, maybe. But I think, like, realistically, it's going this Saturday, for example, is going to be like the battle for the ownership of Tchouaméni, in my opinion. Like, I'm sure he'll be watching the game. I'm sure like he'll have that definitely on his mind. But for me, Liverpool and Real Madrid, we know it's the pinnacle of the sport. Like, every player has in the back of their head, they would, maybe not Mbappe, but every player looks at Real Madrid as like, okay, like that's the top of the sport. And then Liverpool, you look at them as possibly the best team on the planet right now, with a great sporting project, a great manager, and an absolutely fantastic team, where it's almost a guarantee that if you come into that team, you're going to be a success. Like, their recruitment and their ability to gel players in is second to none. Chelsea now are at a stage where it's a lot of uncertainty. And to be honest with you, Tchouaméni would be fantastic for Chelsea, but I'm surprised they're not looking at attackers, because I look at that front three, that front four, and I have more question marks there than I do over the likes of Kovacic, Kante, and Jorginho.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a fair point in that. As that midfield got one more year in it, maybe. I think with Tchouaméni, though, he's also one of those players that if you don't get him now, you may never get him.
I agree.
Because if he goes to Madrid and it's weird, really, because we did a video about this a day or so ago. And what I was told by a couple of journalists, I was told by someone who also works for Chelsea, that the reason that he actually could have gone to Chelsea the summer before,
right?
But he kind of didn't want to, because he looked at the stacked midfield. Billy Gilmore was being rated as going out. He'll come back and he'll be a star. There was the talk of Declan Rice is going to come in the following year.
To be honest, Jorginho and Kante were coming off amazing years.
Yeah. And there was almost an element of, how do I get into that team?
Yeah.
At Liverpool now, there's also, he knows that he's going to be bled in slowly. What it appears to have been reported: 1, Real Madrid is Real Madrid. 2, they're going to pay him big money. And 3, they've made promises that you will be essentially starting. And you've got the likes of Camavinga and other top midfielders there, but they're making a big play. And I think they're making a big play because they've lost out on Mbappe and they want a signature signing that gets everybody juices flowing. But I still think there's some convincing to be done by Chelsea and Liverpool to turn around and go, right, Real Madrid are promising you that. But look at all the other young midfielders they've currently got.
Yeah.
Modric isn't going anywhere right now. Are you sure they're actually going to be able to promise you this first year? Are you going to go there and end up sitting on the bench where actually now at Chelsea, we've got holes in our team?
I think Chelsea could say that, but for Liverpool, for example, Real Madrid could easily go and say, well, how do you get into that midfield 3, midfield 4 of Fabinho, Thiago, Henderson, and Keita? Like,
well, I think he's better than Keita and Henderson.
But I also think he's better than Toni Kroos, and I think there's an argument he's better than Casemiro.
No, listen, and I think that's the point. So I still think there's work for the Chelseas. And
I definitely don't think it's done. Yeah,
but I think in the end, what it's going to come down to, it's going to be sit back, lay down, close your eyes. Where do you see yourself? And Real Madrid is so hard to turn down because of its fame. And then on top of that, you got a lovely city, nice weather.
Madrid, it could be worse.
Yeah.
Madrid or Merseyside.
Exactly. But it's going to be intriguing to see. Viewers, I want to know what you think. Where is Tchouaméni going to end
He's
up?
a Rolls Royce of a midfielder. Honestly, him and Camavinga for the next 15 years in Real Madrid's midfield. It's right.
And the maddest thing is, Pogba. They wanted Pogba a couple of years ago. Real Madrid. I think they're getting not two better players, but they're getting young players, fit, fresh, no injury problems, come in with not baggage, but Pogba, wherever Pogba goes, there's a crazy expectancy.
I think here's the thing too, and this might be a hot take, but I think Tchouaméni, at whatever his age is a more mature player than Pogba is. Like, I think you won't see Tchouaméni, and I'm a big Pogba fan, so take this however you want, but you wouldn't see Tchouaméni pick up the ball off his center backs and lose it immediately. Like, he's a much more mature player, and you even see it in the French team. The guy is mature beyond his years, even at such a young age. And I truly believe wherever he goes, he will excel. And I know we said that about Pogba, but I think Tchouaméni is as guaranteed a success wherever he goes as you can get.
Big take there, viewers. What do you think? Now, we are going to talk Champions League a little bit later, but I wanted to focus on Spurs for a minute. There is a hot take here.
Yeah.
Now this is from Darren Ambrose.
I know. I heard this already.
So we're gonna play it. We're gonna play this. I'm not gonna play it because it's a long clip. Yeah. I'm gonna say it. What he said here is, with the right players playing with Conte, Spurs can challenge. Spurs will win a trophy with Conte, and they'll be within 3 games of winning the title. So with
there's something even crazier if you go further on. I think who's the Man United Goldstein asked him, he's like, can they win the Champions League? And he said, under Conte they can do anything, as in they can win the Champions League. I want to address that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
No, if you watch the full thing, that's what he said. Antonio Conte, guys, I'll talk to you about his vast and luxurious Champions League pedigree. His first UCL knockout win came in 2012 against Celtic away. His second UCL knockout win came in 2012 against Celtic at home. That's it. He has never, ever won another knockout game. Conte is a brilliant, brilliant manager, but he is not winning the Premier League, especially with Klopp and Pep at the helm. And I think if he's back, he can do very, very special things at Spurs, but not win against those two. And in the Champions League, the record speaks for itself. He's had way better teams than he did at Spurs. Juventus, Chelsea, Inter, and he couldn't even get past the group stage at times with those teams. So he's not going to come to Tottenham, who haven't won a trophy since 2008, and challenge for the Champions League. And I think he can do very good things in the league. I think over 38 games, his pedigree speaks for itself. But Pep and Klopp have set a standard that I don't think any single manager on the planet can even touch.
Do you know what's crazy about it? I don't disagree with that. Like, he's not a great cup manager.
Oh, not even
And
close.
European cups is worse. So he's got to prove that. But I've got a hot take on top of the hot take. This is like a double-layered hot take. double bacon hot take.
Go ahead.
Spurs fans will be happy with him irrespective.
Yeah.
As long as he's making top 4 in the Champions League, Spurs fans will never demand anything else. In 10 years' time, if every year they're finishing 4th, 3rd, or 2nd, going on little cup runs, the occasional Champions League quarter or the occasional Champions League semi, they will love him, because Spurs fans, as a general rule, have zero ambition. They are happy to be the bridesmaid. They're happy to be the page girl. They're happy to be the best man. They never want to be the main act.
Don't you think, though, they've had that with Poch, and like, for them, like, I'd like to hear what Spurs fans think about this. Would Spurs fans rather make top 4 for 3 years in a row and get knocked out of the group stage of the Champions League and probably the second round of the FA Cup every single season? or would they rather win the FA Cup or Carabao Cup and finish 6th? What's more important to Spurs fans? I know for Daniel Levy, obviously.
I think they want to win a trophy, but it's not about they don't want to win one. It's that as long as the football excites them, they're kind of happy. My whole life. Now, maybe the young guns coming up, the young Spurs fan. I want to say young guns with Arsenal, but maybe they're a little bit different. And Expressions is a Spurs fan who I know is different about that. He does look at it very, very differently. There's no doubt about it. But they got to a Champions League final. I don't matter if we win or lose. We're just happy we're there. That attitude ain't right. However, I do think at some point Conte could win the league.
Really?
But not when Pep and Klopp are here at their pomp.
But will Conte even be there at that point, knowing Antonio Conte's longevity?
But that's it. They need to keep him there. And what I mean by that is, I know that Klopp's just signed this new deal.
Yeah.
And I know that we don't quite know what's happening with Pep yet. If one of Pep or Klopp leaves, he could beat one of them to the league title if they have an off year. Example being Liverpool last season, City 2 years ago, they had off years. But he can't beat them when they're both here because they're not, in my opinion, they're not both going to have off years at the same time.
Yeah, definitely.
So he needs one of them to leave to have that happen, which is why if they back him and they keep him here, you see, for 3 or 4 or 5 seasons, maybe there's a chance because I do think he's a specialist at league football.
Yeah, I agree.
I think, which is a weird thing to say. Nobody says someone's a cup specialist.
Yeah, no, he's a 38-game man.
Yeah, he's great at it. And they're also going to play a slightly different style of football to how a lot of other clubs are looking to play.
Right.
I just think gives them this little advantage. But they're also going to have a big window. There's no real... They're linked to Yuri Tillemans and they're linked to going back to Christian Eriksen. And there's a few names that are floating about. But they're almost just building up slightly. Like they talk of 150 to 250 million pounds they might spend. If they spend 200 million and they bring in...
Bastoni is another one.
Yeah, he's a great link. Yeah. If they bring in 5 or 6 players of Bentancur, Kulusevski level and above, as in how they perform for Spurs... They could be very dangerous next year.
I completely agree. I completely agree. When I say maybe what I said sounded a little harsh. I think Conte is terrific. And I think what he's done, the amount of people who are comparing him to the likes of Arteta, for example, for me was ridiculous. Antonio Conte has way too much credit in the bank to be compared to a manager as not amateur, but Arteta is new in this game. Let's be real here. Conte has pedigree in the league, especially. And for me, I've said it so many times, I don't think there's a manager who lifts the ceiling of bang average players better than Antonio Conte. Like I've seen this guy win the league with Moses and Alonso as his wingbacks, with Darmian and Ashley Young as his wingbacks. He doesn't need to go sign Mbappe to make Spurs a serious team. He can, like you said, make a Bentancur who was a flop at Juventus look serious.
He's made it that all the England fans want Dyer back in the England squad. And I'm like, don't get carried away. It's the system. It isn't Eric Dyer.
You're absolutely right. Kulusevski and Bentancur, both players Juventus fans were more than happy to see let go. And they've done terrifically well for Spurs.
Fantastic.
So I look at a guy like Bastoni, who I think is a really good young center back, who he already worked with at Inter, put him in the Spurs team next to a Romero and next to a Dyer who has looked rejuvenated. That's an amazing back three right there.
You get a new left wing back. I mean, even Emerson Royale towards the end of the season was putting in some half-decent performances.
Doherty looked like a footballer again.
Yeah. So there's definitely in there. But I'm really excited to see what Spurs, as a football fan, I'm excited to see what Spurs do.
But I do disagree. I don't think he will ever win the league with Spurs, ever.
Fair point. Viewers, what do you think in relation to that? Now, there was another take I wanted to throw your way as well that I saw. And I want to make sure I find this. Where are we at here? So there was a parade the other day.
Hey, you could have fooled me. There was about 10 people there.
The hot take is, was it really a parade? And Jack Grealish, we'll play what Jack Grealish said, actually. So we'll play this. This is what Jack Grealish had to say for himself. We'll play this out loud. Hang on a second. Let's turn this up. Here we go. Oh, there's music in that. I might get in trouble.
You can play the clip over, I guess, maybe. That's a fan singing.
Take him off the pitch. Proper drunk, isn't he?
Oh, they did not.
Almiron. He plays like he's so bad. He plays like Almiron.
He was talking about Riyad Mahrez actually.
Riyad Mahrez.
He was saying like he had to come off. He was so bad. He was playing like Almiron.
Yeah. Do you feel like? I mean, Newcastle fans were triggered by this. Very. How dare you? How dare you say that?
Poor Miggy. They were saying.
Yeah. Like, do you think people are going a little bit over the top? Is it right that players can banter each other like that?
Yes, it's absolutely right. I feel like even before this, I felt very strongly about this. And for me, the one that made me laugh was Simon Jordan on TalkSport was basically saying Grealish has shown his true colors here. He's got no class about him whatsoever. Guys, these professional players are so basically locked into like this no PR. Like,
Yeah.
For me, I see so many people, for example, go at Marcus Rashford for all his tweets are run by his management team, and they're very clearly done so, and doesn't tweet anything out of line and PR this and PR that. And then when a player who, let's face it, is probably half drunk anyways, just lets his personality shine. And yeah, did he make fun of Almiron? Yeah, he did. But the fact is, I watch a lot of the NBA, for example, and I watch American sports. And this isn't to say that I know a lot of people will be like, football is an American sport, you can't change it. But in the NBA, for example, players are allowed to let their personalities shine and they say what they want. And like, that's just the culture and it's accepted. And like, if one player talks shit about another, it's fine. And the other player will just talk shit right back. Like, for example, Patrick Beverley, who's a point guard, came on national television and basically said that this rival point guard of his was super overrated and like was a bad defender and that people overrated him, basically. He said on national television. Everyone laughed. Everyone thought it was great entertainment. And that's not to say now, all of a sudden in the Premier League, players should just be calling themselves out right, left, and center. But I think that you need a bit of chaos in all of this. I think you need players just saying it as it is. And did Grealish maybe have to say Almiron? Probably not. But I think it would be hilarious, for example, if Almiron fired a tweet back like, bench players talking like starters all of a sudden. Because let's face it, Grealish has been a bench player. Wouldn't it be amazing if Almiron was kind of just fired back? Yeah. I don't like, and here's the biggest problem for me. Football Twitter is the one who's had a huge problem with this. If you go on football Twitter, 90% of it is people talking shit about footballers. So now why all of a sudden do they have a moral compass just developing that Grealish can't really say what he feels half drunk about not even a rival player?
It's virtue signaling, and virtue signaling is always about pushing other people down so that you can elevate your own self-worth. So people think you look great. And most of these footballers know each other. It was only the other day, Eric Dyer was picked up, turning around to Kroll saying, how much, obviously because he was saving shots from Son, how much is Salah paying you?
Yeah.
It doesn't need investigating. It doesn't need, I saw some Liverpool fans get, oh no, he wouldn't, why would you say that? It's a joke, bruv. Chill out. We even saw Mo Salah. We all know when they beat Man United badly again, you know, their midfield or whatever it is makes it easy for us. Their team makes it easy for us. We all knew he meant Man United. And then it went viral. And then he had to come out and say, I wasn't talking about my fellow professionals. I respect them and all of this. But you should be talking about us. You know, I remember Patrice Evra doing an interview where he said, we're always confident against Arsenal because it's men against boys. If a player said that now, there'd be outrage everywhere. But football Twitter is the weirdest place, as you say, because it's the most toxic place for football in the world. But yet, every now and then they all club together and start going after individuals for like having a go at footballers. There are certain players that are untouchable. You know, right now, if you point out that Martial had a really bad loan deal, how dare you? He's a human being with feelings. The same people will turn around and what they say about Marcus Rashford or about Maguire. You think, you lot are mental. Like it's crazy. And it's all just about doing what's right and fashionable. And Jack Grealish is a really polarizing individual.
Yeah, because he's honestly like he's the least professional footballer. Like he looks like someone just took him off the street and gave him no PR lessons whatsoever and told him just like be yourself.
But that's why normal people, not sort of Twitter bots as I call them, like him. Because
he's real. Like, there's no filter.
Yeah, you're real, and I like that. And it isn't all nonsense. And it's like when everybody gets panicky over the press conferences. Why are you panicking over generic answers that were written by a press officer that all managers kind of? There was something that Jurgen Klopp did the other day, and he was like he referred to Minamino as Mr. Carabao Cup and Mr. FA Cup for Liverpool. What? He didn't start any of the important games.
Yes.
He's not. He is what he is. He's a fringe player, and you use him as and when he's required. But Klopp's never going to say that because it's disrespectful. When I love Jurgen Klopp the most is when he speaks freely. When Pep Guardiola is, I'm happy more than you believe.
I think Pep is hilarious.
That's when when they drop that guard. LVG. The maddest thing is, towards the end of his Man United career, when he called out Custis from the Sun, and
he called him a fat
boy, when he did the whole falling on the floor thing against Arsenal, if it had been like that a year earlier, he'd have got longer in the job.
Yeah,
because people would have endeared themselves to him, and it's when people show personality, it makes you care more. Equally, everyone's going to be more on Grealish's back now. Some are going to support him a little bit more. He said nothing nasty. It wasn't about an immutable element. He didn't talk about his nationality, religion,
it's
race.
Hilarious, honestly.
It just is what it is. Now, I'm a fight fan, so I like people. Again, I don't like the casuals in the fight game who like, I can't believe one fighter just said to another that he's going to kill him. Yeah, he doesn't mean
but
it.
That's the thing. This is all sports culture. Like, and anything goes. Like, and that's the thing. I feel like every sport is like that except football, where it's like there's this culture, or there's this perceived culture that all footballers are saints and they say everything by the book, when it's not the reality, guys. Like, these guys are human beings. I'm sure. And if you go in a football dressing room, the amount of shit that gets talked in there, the amount of vulgar stuff that gets said in there, you'd probably like gasp.
And most of these guys are young lads.
Yeah.
And it's like when people get shocked when footballers cheat on their other halves. Are you dumb? Like, I look at it this way. I've never had anywhere near the money a footballer has had.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine what it's like to be 22, a millionaire in some of the best clubs, parties around the world, where you have the most beautiful people in the world come onto you to sit there at home on your IKEA sofa, right, eating your third bag of crisps.
How dare you fucking cheat?
How dare you? I'd never do that. You ain't got the chance, bruv. You haven't had the chance to do it. You don't know whether you would do it or not. You know, I don't want to take this deep. A friend of mine's a fireman and said to me, he's been outside, like, what does every parent say? If my son was in a burning house, I'd run in. My friend's a fireman and has told me straight, there are parents that stand outside houses that are on fire, the kids are inside, they're screaming for someone to help, but they don't even once try to run in. Because the fear of the fire is too much for them. That doesn't mean they're bad parents. Doesn't mean it means you don't know what you're going to, the moral of it is you don't know what you're going to do until you're in that position. And sometimes I see these little virtues and I'm like, I'd love to set you up. I'd love to stick you in like a car with hidden camera and then have 3 very attractive ladies come in or men, whatever your preference, and have them come on to you and see what you do. Let's see how moralistic you are. Because I think 95% of these people are charlatans. It's right. What can I tweet that's going to make me look the best?
Bro, that's what I'm saying. And for me, this is like the craziest thing for me. Anyone who's played football at any level, like I'm talking Sunday league, knows what like these guys are what, especially like at 17, 18, 19 years old, the shit that you guys are saying to each other. Like, I remember when I was playing football, like just with my friends, we talk shit to each other. Like, you're so ass, like you can't do this, or like you were terrible last game. Why is it all of a sudden in an environment when they're all comfortable, right? Everyone in that city bus celebrating was comfortable. They were all probably half drunk, especially Grealish. Something like that slips, and all of a sudden people want to say, oh, his true character slipped. This, if anything, more people's true character should slip, because this is who they really are. Like, there's no harm in this. If any, like, I'm sure Almiron himself is not like waking up in cold sweats about it.
No,
it's not that
he
deep.
won't be bothered.
And like I said, I wish like he had said this about like Rudiger, for example, because I know Rudiger would have fired back. Rudiger would have been like.
And do you know what's mad about it as well? Footballers generally are a little bit more educated now because the clubs, they do a lot more work.
Yeah.
But these are typically, and globally this is the case, working class men who often spend more time playing football than they did in classrooms.
Yes.
None of them generally have further education.
Yes.
I know some do like A levels at the club and things like this, but are they really that focused on it?
Yeah.
Like, they're not the next MPs of the country, the lawyers of the country, the next lawmakers of the country. You know, the person who's going to be running the police force in a few years' time, who's going to be running the NHS, where you want prim and proper, because you want to know that the people running some of the most important elements of the country are good people. These are sports people and footballers. Like, I know that my builder, who's generally working class, is going to say a few things and do a few things. Oh, you probably couldn't say that if you worked in a bank or in a solicitor's firm. But you kind of just know it's part of their culture and their life. I just feel like now there's so much policing of what people say and do. And I get it when it comes to bad stuff.
Right. But
this is a man joking probably about a player who he knows. He probably knows him, and everyone probably laughed about it. And yeah, it's crazy to me.
I'm telling you, for me, this goes back to the Pep and Klopp thing. When people were talking about, is it a real rivalry? And no, it's not, because there's no venom between the two. Like Mourinho, you talked about Van Gaal. Mourinho was the best at it. Mourinho called Arsene Wenger a specialist in failure numerous times on live television.
Fergie, turned around about Newcastle, some small club in the coast of the North.
He literally said teams don't try against Newcastle. Like that, no one would say that anymore.
Yeah, and that little bit is definitely missing. But viewers, what do you think? Jack Grealish, was he right? Was he wrong?
He was right. Honestly, he was right.
We want your comments. Now, final part.
Yeah.
There isn't so much a hot take, but it's Champions League final. Liverpool, they're going for the famous. They're not going for the famous squad. The quad isn't happening. Sorry. What's happening in the game? What's going to happen? What's your take on this game?
I mean, I hope Real Madrid win. Anyone who knows. I mean, apparently people are asking me if I'm a Real Madrid fan these days. So at this point, I might have to just run with it. But it's going to be a really good game, I think. Listen, I've predicted Real Madrid to lose every single tie that they've been in this year. I predicted PSG to beat them, Real Madrid beat them. I predicted Chelsea to beat them, Real Madrid beat them. I predicted City to wipe the floor with them. Real Madrid beat them. So for me, I'm done saying any team will wipe the floor of Real Madrid. They've earned too much respect to just be written off. They can beat any team on the planet on their day in any given moment. I think they've shown that. But Liverpool is a team that is so inevitable. I think that's the key word here. Like, I can't remember the last time, and people might think this is slander, but I'm going to be real here. I can't remember the last time I was blown away by a Liverpool performance. But that's not a bad thing. That's what makes the elite teams the elite teams. They don't have to play well to win games. It reminds me of the old Man United teams, especially in the latter years of Fergie. They wouldn't play well most games, but they just have enough grit and enough mentality and enough experience to get them through games. And that's this Liverpool team for me. But it's also this Real Madrid team. And I think that almost sums up the Champions League. Man City is a better team, in my opinion, than both of these teams, but they're not in the final because football isn't all about who makes the most passes and who keeps the most possession.
Not about data points and maths.
It's true. It's absolutely true. There's other variables and intangibles that come into a football game. And if it was so obvious, the best team would win everything every single year, and they don't. This is a very hard game to predict. Two exceptional teams with exceptional individuals. The two arguably best players of the season up against each other. Arguably, it depends on who you see, but Benzema, no doubt. Salah and Mane have both been exceptional as well. Vinny, stars on display. Two star-studded managers as well. Two historically great teams. We're set for a really tasty final, and I really hope it ends with Real Madrid lifting the trophy, and I know you really do too. But there's a small part of me that's like, well, it's a big part of me that says Liverpool this year, they didn't win the league, but this is going to be a really good season for them, and they're going to end it with the trophy.
Well, it's crazy, really, because obviously Jurgen Klopp has won the Manager of the Year award.
Yeah, well,
the LMA and the Premier League Manager of the Year award. So they're suggesting that just being in these finals and not winning the Prem, coming second and running close, it is an exceptional achievement. And they've had a brilliant year.
Yep.
History only remembers winners, though. Their own GOAT.
Yeah.
Shankly said that.
It's true.
And that isn't a dig at Liverpool.
But it's true.
But they have to win this Champions League. I think even more so than Real Madrid this year, who are in transition and they won a league title. I mean, they're in transition, they win a league title in the Champions League.
Tells you everything.
It's ridiculously good. Of course. But, Tchouameni joins, Camavinga gets older, mad. But I make Liverpool favourites. I don't think you can look beyond Liverpool as favourites. I think you're lying to yourself if you say that Real Madrid are the favourites.
They're not, I agree.
But I can see Real Madrid winning.
Absolutely.
And that isn't because... It's nothing other than the fact that it's a one-off game. There's no second leg. And the way they've come back in every single game has been ridiculous. Liverpool have to blow them away and blow them away early, in my opinion. If Madrid are still in this game with 15 minutes to go.
20 seconds, 15 seconds to go. That's the way they play.
No, I hear that, but I just feel that if they're in it by a goal or the game's a draw, I see them winning it. I'm predicting Liverpool to win. I think Liverpool will do it.
Yeah, I agree.
But I can't, it's like I'm 80% sure. There is this 20% of me in my brain that's saying, but you can't write this team off. If they give Benzema the chances they afforded to Villarreal, to Nunez, and Lautaro got opportunities like that. Inter, Villarreal, and who the other team that knocked out? Benfica. They all created openings and opportunities at times over 2 days.
Created opportunities. West Ham created opportunities. Spurs,
Teams did. And it's almost this case of Benzema and Vinny Jr. will punish you. And that's just there in the back of my head, which makes it an amazing game. It reminds me a bit like Liverpool are the better two boxers. Liverpool, the better boxer, and they've got knockout power. But they're in the ring with somebody with exceptional knockout power where Liverpool could be 11 and a half rounds up and then get caught and be knocked out cold and lose the fight.
Fury versus Wilder.
Yeah, exactly. And generally, Fury came out on top 2 times out of the 3 out of 3, most people's eyes, to be honest. But you just know Real Madrid have got this knockout punch ability that could flatline Liverpool if it happens at the right time. And it makes it an amazing game. And I'm not looking beyond Liverpool. I think they're going to do it. But where the pressure could get to them is the fact they have to do it because history needs them to win this trophy. Because in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years time, nobody is going to remember at all for any singular second that you were this good if they look back and just see a Carabao Cup and an FA Cup. They're going to see you as a good team.
Yeah, no,
they're not going to say you were a bad team, but they won't remember the finer detail. Yep. You in that Champions League, and it's, wow, you won the Champions League. it solidifies how brilliant they've been.
I'll give you an example. Milan in the 2000s, everyone remembers them. Everyone, because of those 2 Champions League titles. Pirlo, Kaká, Seedorf, Shevchenko. They wrote their names in the history books because of those 2 Champions League wins. They made the semifinals of the Champions League more times than they finished top 3 in Serie A. They were very, very, very poor in the league. They won it once in the 2000s. Once with that team and Ancelotti. But no one remembers that because of what they did in Europe in the biggest stage. Liverpool, if they don't win this Champions League final, for me, will, of course, Klopp is still there for a few more years, so it isn't solidified. But up to now, if they don't win this, they will be known as the side character in Manchester City's story. It's Manchester City's era, and Liverpool were the challengers, but no one remembers the challengers. Just like no one remembers, for example, Mancini's City, really, because they won the one league, but United, it was their era. Liverpool winning another Champions League, their 3rd final in 5 years, that puts them in the history books for me, even though they haven't done as well in the league. But those 2 Champions League titles puts this team, puts Mo Salah and Sadio Mane, puts Van Dijk at that pedestal.
Well, if they then add a couple of more league titles to it,
because that's the thing, it's not over.
It can go into one of the greatest teams of all time, where City need to add that. And it's not to suggest that Liverpool won't get better or improve their squad.
Yeah.
But with Haaland coming in, to Man City, you sort of look at it along the lines of, and Pep maybe staying for a few more years. It's like, well, they might win the league again next year. They might do a 3-peat. They could do a 4-peat. They could if they had to do a 3 and a 4-peat and for our Champions League in there, era-wise, you can't touch them. And it's why Liverpool need it, because, and a lot of Liverpool fans will probably play this down. No, it isn't. It's not as deep as you're making it out. And I'm like, no, I disagree. You celebrate being the most decorated club in England. That's because you won these trophies. That's the only currency that that Liverpool, AC Milan, Real Madrid, Manchester United, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, it's the only currency these clubs trade in.
It's true. And I think this is like the reality, guys. And a lot of Liverpool fans might not like to hear this. A lot of football fans might not like to hear this, but it's the finest of margins, but the margins they count. With this Champions League title, for me, is the difference between Mo Salah being remembered as the best player on a team that nearly won everything, or being remembered as a guy who probably cost his team because the second half of the season he wasn't there as much. It's the reality. He goes from the top to the bottom depending on how this Champions League goes. We talked about Trent a bit off camera. Trent will either lock up Vinicius Jr. this final, and all the defensive criticism will go away for good, honestly, because he's locking up one of the best left wingers on the planet. And he has an amazing game. People continue talking about him in the Dani Alves conversations, the Cafu conversations, or he gets ripped apart by Vinny and he never lives it down. It's the finest of margins. And this is Champions League. It always comes down to the finest of margins.
No, you're absolutely right. And fans won't ever let those things let those things go. And as I say, it's going to be a brilliant final. Yeah. I make Liverpool the favourites.
Me too. I agree.
But it's just an interesting time because you've got to win it. And you bring up fine margins. And I think back to 2009.
Yeah.
Man United were regarded the best team in the world until they played Barca in that final. But we should have got Chelsea in that final.
Exactly.
And we were much better than Chelsea in 2009. Chelsea, just with this team against Barca consistently, that did well against them. They were like a little bit of a mini bogey team. If the referees gave the right decisions in that game at Stamford Bridge, it would have been Man United Chelsea. That doesn't mean we would have won. But I think we had more, hindsight's lucrative. We'd had more chance against that Chelsea team than we did Barca.
And I think here's the thing, too. You're talking about it from a Man United point of view. Is Barca even the same team going forward if that moment doesn't happen? And I can even talk about it from a Real Madrid point of view, just in case Liverpool fans think I'm picking on them. If Benzema doesn't win the Champions League, his year becomes that, is an amazing year. But no one is going to remember it in the same allure. They're not going to talk about him in the same conversations as Cristiano Ronaldo's iconic Champions League. If he doesn't win it. If he does, then he's in every conversation ever.
Well, at Real Madrid, of course, because to go into that conversation with those, although he was there for the other four, this guy could then have 5 Champions Leagues. But he could be the star man for this one. It's a different feel. I mean, but Gareth Bale when he's 5th as well, and he's barely kicked the ball. It's great. But listen, as I say, it's legacy is important. And I bring up the Man United point just because if things would have gone differently that year, Fergie could have won 2 on the bounce. And you bring up the Trent thing, living things down. Fergie still to this day gets criticised for not winning more Champions Leagues. But that's the difference. Fine margins, refereeing decisions, goals that should have been counted, not counting. So much can happen in these games, which is why, for me, Liverpool, get yourselves out there, blow them away early, get those early goals,
and put yourself in history.
And then you cement your name in history, which is what all our clubs are there to do, mate. But what's your score prediction going to be?
Man, I think it's going to be 2-0 Liverpool. 2-0 Liverpool.
I'm going to go 2-1 to Liverpool. I do predict them to win. I do think they will do it. But then it's mad. I've written off Real Madrid in every other game and been wrong in every other game.
Maybe that's why we're doing it.
Maybe it's a bit of Terry Judge. Terry Judge. There we go. But listen, I appreciate you coming back on, mate, and having your say. Viewers, make sure like buttons are being smashed. Make sure you subscribe. Until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Peace.